Hi, welcome to Yellow's Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today, my very, very special guest is Mr. Scott DeLuzio, who, I mean, I came across this story on Scott, and imagine that you're going through the horrors of war in Afghanistan, and you're in the middle of a firefight, and everything's going crazy, and little that you know, your brother's 2 miles away, fighting a fight that's going crazy too, and then you survive all that. You get back to the base, and you get debriefed, and you get told that your brother was killed 2 miles away from you. The things that could have went through your head. But first, before we go and telling that story, I want to introduce you to Mr. Scott DeLuzio. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity to come on and share my story. Just quick little corrections, nothing major that really influenced the story too much to what you just said. He was a little more than 2 miles away, but the distance really didn't matter. He could have been 2 miles, he could have been 50 miles. It didn't really matter. The story is still the same. Out in the middle of Afghanistan, uh, find out that my brother was killed in action and get thrown into a firefight just a few minutes after. That's kind of, I guess, the gist of the story, right? And hopefully we can share a little bit about that. But I'm sure we got other stuff to talk about as well. And looking forward to the conversation.
Dude, it's an honor to have you on, brother to brother, because I love what you're doing. Not only did you go ahead and take this traumatic experience and tell the world, you made it a book, Surviving Son, where you talk about that whole experience and coming into September 11th, coming into the military, all of it that led to all of this, and then the aftermath. And it's a raw account of it. So you go and you put it in a book form, and then you go out and you start this podcast, and you start getting other brothers' stories and sisters' stories, and their comeback, and what life is after that. So it's an honor to have you on. What So one of the things that I experienced with PTSD was I couldn't even share the story. It took a lot of work to even get to where it was a beautiful lady at the VA that showed me how to be able to share that and tell my story. And but it took a lot of work. Tell me, how did you get to the point where you could even write a book about that?
Y- it's not easy. Like you said, and everybody's different. Everyone's experiences are different. Um, how they deal with stuff coming back home, stuff that they were going through. Uh, it's all going to be different. But um, for me, it wasn't easy either. It started off, I think, like a lot of folks coming back from overseas, kind of denial. Uh, where no, I'm good. I'm good to go. I don't need therapy. I don't need to talk to anybody. I'll be good to go. Um, that lasted for a little while. Uh, I think everyone gave me a little bit of grace. Coming back home, having just lost my brother, having just come back from overseas, they kind of understood. All right, he's probably going to need some time to adjust to getting back home and grieving and that whole thing. Um, so everyone was really good. They gave me a little space, gave me some time to kind of do all that stuff, and it just didn't get better. Just sitting there stewing in my own thoughts, wasn't getting better. So I had, like you were just talking about, I had to go and get help. Reach a point where I recognized this is not the type of person I want to be. It's not the type of husband I want to be. It's not the type of father I want to be. It's not the type of friend or neighbor or coworker or you fill in the blank of whatever it was that I was to other people. I didn't want to be that the way I was. And full disclosure, I still go to therapy, but
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a process that it isn't like a, like you break a bone and you go to the doctor, you get a cast put on it, for a little while. A couple weeks later, they take it off and you're good to go. It's all healed and ready to go. It's one of those things where things can trigger you and make um, make the memories and the those responses kind of come back up. And so it's a process. It takes time. But when I read around the time that I started my podcast, which you mentioned earlier, um, I realized that there was a story. I was sharing other people's stories, and I was like, I got a story too. I got a story to share. And it wasn't just my story; it was my brother's story as well. And I was like, what better way to share it than to put it in a book format, in a format that will outlive me. Obviously, it outlived him, but it'll outlive both of us, and it'll be there for future generations to pick up and read if they choose to really understand what it was like for just from my point of view, what it was like for us going overseas and serving our country.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing about books, that they've been around for a very long time, and it's a great format to have your story that will outlive you on paper, and
Yep.
it's a story to be told. But going back a little bit on that, what led to that army service, and then having a pair of brothers that both decided to serve. How did all that come about?
Well, so my just kind of going back, my family was a patriotic family from real early age. I remember my folks talking about, just being what it meant to be an American. My grandfather, he lived in Poland during World War II, and so he saw firsthand what that was like living in that kind of era. My other grandfather, he served in the Navy in World War II. He was in the Pacific. They saw the evils that the world had to offer, some of the worst of the worst. And they made sure, my parents made sure that we knew how lucky and how fortunate we were to be able to live in a country like the United States, to be able to,
Yes.
have be able to rely on the military, the police, the firefighters, the paramedics to be there for you. All those people who put that uniform on to go out and protect and serve random strangers, people they didn't even know. But they went out every day in, day out, knowing that they're putting their lives on the line to help these other people. And so that was kind of our upbringing. 9/11 obviously happened. That had a huge impact on us, like and it did anyone else. And a few years after 9/11, my younger brother decided to enlist in the Vermont Army National Guard. He was going to school up in Vermont at a school called Norwich University, which was primarily a military school. Kind of, it's where the ROTC was founded, or first ROTC school, I guess. Was up there, and so he knew a guy who was in the guard, and that guy kind of introduced the idea to him of joining while you're going to school, and he was like, "Yeah, I think I could do that." And kind of overnight, my younger brother went from this little kid that I used to pick on and things like that, the way brothers do, kind of all
Mhm.
loving and fun, it went from that to all of a sudden elevated to this like superstar status, pretty much just overnight. And, super proud of him and everything. And, it got me thinking, about a year later, there was reports in the news that there was a shortage. They weren't going to hit their recruiting numbers for the military, and that started pissing me off. I was like, "Man, 9/11 was not that long ago, and you know what the sentiment was like back then. Everybody wanted to go, kick some ass and do all that kind of stuff, right?"
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Where are all these people?" And then I looked in the mirror, and I'm like, "Hell, man, I was one of those people, and I still haven't done anything, to serve myself." And So I was like, well, okay, I'm young enough, I'm fit, I'm perfectly capable of joining the military. Why not me? And so that's how I got in to the military. You know, my brother kind of planted the seed
Mhm.
because he did it, kind of showed me the way to uh, to go through, and he kind of filled me in on what basic training was like and what the commitment was like and all the things that I was signing up for that I probably didn't really realize, you know, without his help.
We never do.
No,
Yeah,
you
we
never
never
do. But
never don't.
but it
So
was great having somebody else's perspective, like somebody I knew and could trust, and he could tell me, you know, what to expect, and that made it a little bit easier for me.
that dotted line, definitely, when we sign on that dotted line and we're raising our hand, we have zero clue what that will entail. And I mean, they talk about it now, and we talk about it. We say, you know, up to your life for your country is what you're signing up to. But as an 18-year-old kid, that's an abstract thought, you know. And as we get older in life, and God has blessed us that we are living, we think, oh wow, you know, there's been so much that's happened, and so much life, how much life means. It becomes even more it becomes more important and more stronger in your thoughts. So
Right.
but so how did you got so, you know, they were deploying people all over the place. I ended up going to Iraq, you ended up going to Afghanistan. Were you guys in the same unit, or how'd that end up that you guys both ended up in Afghanistan?
Yeah, so he, like I said, he was in the Vermont Army National Guard. I lived in Connecticut. We both lived in Connecticut. He just went to school up there in Vermont. So he joined the guard up there. I joined it in Connecticut because I don't know, it
Yeah.
just, to me it made sense to, you know,
Mhm.
serve locally like that. And uh the two units that we were in originally were not connected in any way, as far as I know. There was no connection there, but there was some reorganization of several units shortly after I joined, and our both of our units fell under the same brigade after that reorganization. And so at that point, um, there was a brigade-wide deployment to Afghanistan in 2010, and that's how both of us ended up getting overseas at the same time. So both of us went over, despite the fact that we were in, you know, different units. We still kind of fell under the same brigade. So we all were deployed together.
I could only imagine what your mom was feeling. I mean,
Yeah.
because my mom was terrorized at the thought of me going to war. That was not, I think she knew when I signed up, because she was pretty emotional about it. You know, my grandpa had been in the army. My dad was in the Corps. She understood, you know, not understood, but as much as you can understand civilian, what that meant. And
Yeah.
she lived through the Vietnam War. So I guess she had some concept, and it was her baby. But I could only imagine what your mom was going through with both, you know, both her kids just going over there into the middle of the hot zone.
Yeah. I, I think, you know, one's bad enough, right? Like you were saying, but two, that's kind of hard. But it's actually surprisingly not that uncommon to have siblings serving together, especially in the National Guard, because if you think about it, like you're joining, especially in a small state like Connecticut, Vermont, uh, you're joining a unit, and oftentimes they don't have very many units to join. So if you and your brother want to join uh, the National Guard, well, you're probably going to end up in the same unit. And so if there's a deployment, you're all going together. And there were several brothers in my company that served together. And I know other companies probably had the similar experience as well. But yeah, you know, for the parents, it's not
Yeah.
easy. But you know, it's one of those things where it's kind of mixed emotions where, you know, obviously you don't want your kid to get hurt or killed or anything like that, but at the same time you're kind of proud of them too because they stepped up, they volunteered, and they're willing to make a sacrifice for you know, the country.
Your mom raised some patriots, and I'm very thankful for her. It's take me back to, because you know we're going to move forward in your journey
Sure.
after, but in order to put that in context, take me back to that day. Take me back to how that situation all kind of unfolded, so my audience could kind of understand as best as they can
Yeah.
how it happened.
Yeah, no problem. So, um, the day, was August 22nd, 2010. My unit was, uh, working with the Afghan army. We were, for a few weeks before, we had been training with them. Unfortunately, this was during Ramadan, and summers in Afghanistan are extremely hot.
Mhm.
Ramadan, they don't eat or drink anything like during the daylight hours, and so trying to get the Afghan army soldiers to do any sort of training during the day was like pulling teeth. We were lucky if we got them for an hour, and then they went on to go find a cool place to just hang out and not be running around in the sun or anything like that.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of rough. But we went out, we flew out, on Chinooks, and we flew out to this remote village. Landed on a hilltop outside the village at night, and we hung out there till first light, and we made our way down into the village, and we kind of let the Afghan army take the lead, and they started clearing the houses and doing all that type of stuff. We were there kind of for support. I kind of think of it like when you have driver's ed, and you got the young kid behind the wheel. He's in control of the car, but the driver's ed instructor has that extra brake on his side,
Yeah,
and he can tap the brakes if he needs to. So that's kind of the way I think of like what we were
that's a
doing.
good analogy. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. So we were there just in case stuff got out of hand, and we'd be able to help out, if necessary. But they went through, they found some contraband and weapons and other type of stuff that the Taliban was actually hiding out in there. So our intelligence, for once, actually panned out. And so um, we we gathered all that stuff, destroyed it, and I got a call on the radio. Uh, at some point through as we're going through this village, and it said that the commanding officer was looking for me specifically. And the first thought that went through my head was, um, the commanding officer, for the people who are listening who aren't familiar with the chain of command, they usually send messages down the chain of command. There were several levels between me and him.
Yeah,
So so the messages usually make their way down through the grapevine,
it
and
rolls downhill.
it does, it does.
So
Unless now there's a caveat to that, unless you either did something really, really great or really, really bad.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was like, "Okay, I just did my job today. I didn't really do anything great. I
Mhm.
didn't do anything spectacular. I wasn't getting like any medals for, my actions that day or anything like that. There's no heroics. There's no, I was just doing my job.
So if it isn't that one,
It's not
it's
that one. It's gotta be the other one, like something really bad. So I'm out there and I am freaking out. I was a squad leader at the time, so I had a squad of guys. I was checking their equipment. I had a list of paper in my pocket that I carried around, that had serial numbers for all like their weapons and their optics and any sensitive items that they had. I had serial numbers, and I was checking every single thing on there. And we're out in the middle of this village, which I don't know this village. We've never been there before. And I stopped everything, and I'm like, okay, we're making sure we got everything. No one lost anything. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what is going on? We had everything. Everything was good to go. I'm like, There's something up. I don't know what it is. This just doesn't smell right."
Mhm.
So eventually, I made it back up the hill to where the commanding officer was, and linked up with him, and he tells me that my brother's unit was ambushed and that my brother got hit. And now at this point in time, we had been in country for 6 months or so, give or take, at this point, maybe a little over. And it had not yet occurred to me in the last 6 months that my brother could be seriously injured or killed. Obviously, he could, roll his ankle, or he could, have little, bumps and bruises and that kind of stuff. But serious injuries or being killed did not occur to me at this point, as far as I can remember. It just wasn't an option. That was something that happened to other people. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a new reality for me. And I was like, okay, well, um, where is he? Can I get to him to provide some, moral support, or does he need blood or something? Does he, we're family. We probably had similar blood types, and um, you
Can I
know,
go over there and talk some crap to him for,
something,
getting
like, keep your freaking head down or something.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just,
Mhm.
can I be that guy to go do that? And my commanding officer looked at me like I had three heads, and he's like, "No, man, like he was killed. He was killed in action." And right there, it was like a punch in the gut. Like literally, like the air just escaped me. It just flowed right out of me. And I had, how like people have near death experiences and they say like their life flashed before their eyes. Well, I had the opposite where my life flashed forward, where now I had to like envision what life was going to be like without him
Ugh,
as a part of it. And I had things like birthdays and weddings and other celebrations and holidays, Christmas, and all this kind of stuff where it was like there's just going to be that empty seat at the table where he's not going to be. We know he should be there, but he won't be there.
yeah.
And that kind of thing ran through my head, and so I was a wreck. Um, but I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so after finding out that he was killed, um, our unit started taking fire from the village that we had just come out of. Their RPGs and small arms fire.
Of
Uh,
course.
I
They
mean,
always had great timing, didn't they?
when it rains, it pours, right?
Right.
There's no rest, I guess.
No.
So I've been asked by other people, throughout the years who have listened to this story, and civilians, didn't really know kind of what happens in combat and stuff, but they would ask like, well, did you have to fight? Well,
Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, I kind of I had to,
Mhm.
because it wasn't like there was like a safe space where you can go to, and the Taliban would just be like, okay, well, we won't touch you there. Like kind of like when you're playing freeze tag or something as a kid, and it's just like, oh, I'm on base, and so you can't touch me or something. And you there was no area like that you could just go to, and so at that point, the first shots started firing off. I had a couple of my guys who were hanging out with me, making sure I was going to be okay and everything. And I told them, like, get back to the squad. One of them was a team leader. I was like, go make sure your team's good to go. The other guy was he was a good friend of mine. I was like, just go make sure everything's good to go, and get back to where the squad is. Fill in the gaps. Um, and I collected myself, and I took a second.
Did it turn into anger
Yeah,
when you went did I bet it like these mother yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, big time. So like I was saying, like I tried to collect myself, but yeah, anger came really quick with me, and I was like, I felt like I wanted to just go run into that village and kill everybody I saw, man, woman, child, didn't matter who it was.
Everybody.
I wanted to kill if they were an Afghan, I wanted to kill them at that point. Like that, there was no um, sympathy. There was no. Uh, I even looked at our interpreters who we had, who I was friends with. Like they were good guys. They were upstanding people, and they were just trying to do the right thing. I looked at them like, screw you, man. Like I hated everybody at that point. I was so angry, um, and that thought that I had of just like going and killing everybody. I was like, look, if I go and do that, my parents are probably getting a second knock on the door because I'm probably not going to make it out of that alive. My wife's going to be a widow. My son would. I had at that point a 9 month ish old son. At that point, he was born just before I deployed.
Me
Um,
too.
you know, I was like, he's going to grow up without a father. I won't even get a chance to know him. And what kind of kid is he going to be? Is he going to be smart? Is he going to be athletic? Is he going to be, what is it? What is he going to be? I had no idea at that point. He was just a baby. And I was like, look, if I can't keep it together, I'm dead. There's no way I'm making out of here if I go and do something stupid like that. So I was like, okay, I got to compartmentalize this. I got to stuff this down, the grief and the anger and the everything else. I mean, I could use some of that anger, if I'm fighting, I gotta have a little of that anger that I can tap into, right? But I
Mhm.
can't be stupid about it. I can't just go running off and like, Rambo style and just start guns a-blazing, killing
Mhm.
everybody like that. That's stupid. So you can't
That
do that.
that doesn't do too well in the zone anyway. So
No, no.
Rambo's great for the movies. I mean, it looks really good, but it's never quite that pretty. So
Right, right. Yeah.
you're getting into this. You have to go through a firefight. Thank God you made it back. What happens there?
Yeah, so we suppress the this thing with no casualties on our end, thank God.
Thank God.
We
Thank God.
made it through. There's some bumps and bruises and stuff like that. People got injured, but no one seriously injured. No
Hmm.
real bad things. We called in air support. There was like this little hut that was off on like another mountaintop on the opposite side, and we're like, it looked like some people, I didn't see it, but some people thought maybe some folks went into that building that were maybe taking some pot shots at us, and so our the commanding officer, he called in, he told someone to call in the air support, and they came in, and that building doesn't exist anymore. It
Yeah.
just was completely leveled, and in like a sick, weird way. Like people listen to this, are like, God, this guy is messed up. Yeah, I probably was at the time, but it was so satisfying to see that building just get leveled. And anyone who was in there, like I said, I wanted to kill everyone. And seeing that building get leveled and knowing that there were people in there, I was like, thank God they got
And,
him. You
and
know,
you know what? The thing is that our story has to be told, but it has to be told truth.
yeah,
You can't look at an experience of war with the eyes of peace.
right.
You can't do it. Things that happen there are different. Things that occur in a war zone are not like anything that you'll encounter here.
Right.
So you
Oh, for
can't put those same eyes on it, and but we got to be able to tell our story
yeah.
and how it went down, not how they dressed it up. So you got home, man. You got home after this experience. I'm sure you dealt with anger. You dealt with all the range of emotions that you
Yeah.
deal with PTSD. Um, did it come to a time where you like like me and many others who the 22 a day who decided I got through the war, but I can't live with the peace. I want to get out of here.
It got to the point where I didn't like the person I saw in the mirror anymore. Where I was like, this person absolutely sucks. I don't like this person. I hate him. I I hated who I became, the type of person I was. Because you're right, there was that anger. I would get angry at the dumbest stuff, like so little thing. I said I had a newborn at home, and I got home, a couple days after my brother was killed. So he was still, really young, but he would do things like he would. Uh, as he was getting a little bit older, he would drop some food from the his high chair, and he'd drop it on the floor, and I'd freak out, and I'd just start yelling and screaming and stuff. Looking back, and I was like, "What the hell was I doing?" Like,
Yeah.
that was just dumb.
It,
But I was letting that anger out. I was letting the anger that I just kind of stuffed down when my brother was killed, and I wanted to go kill all those people. I started just yelling at everything. And the thing was, I would have the same reaction for little minor inconveniences as I would for major uh, issues. Someone's about to get hit by a truck or something, and you know how you might yell to get their attention, or the way you might react to save that person who's in immediate danger. It's going to be a urgent, loud, impactful type of response. But
mhm.
I would have the same response to, my son spilling milk on the floor or something, like that doesn't that doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, I hated that person that I was becoming. And I started to notice just like how often I would be yelling. And I actually started to develop this pain in my jaw because I would clench my teeth so tight. Anytime I would have these angry moments, it would just be all this tension in my face and my jaw, and it would start to hurt. And I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, I never did that before. I never had that kind of problem, but here I was yelling, I was screaming, I never got violent, with family like that. I never hit anyone or anything like that. But I, uh, you know, I gotta imagine it wasn't the best
You weren't
version of myself. I
Yeah,
was
you weren't pleasant to be around.
no,
You weren't
no,
pleasant to be around at all. And you start looking at the world in a very, you look at the world in a very jaded thing. You're very, nihilistic. You're just very angry. And the thing that I learned through all kinds of work that I had to do was that anger, because that was the one thing. And when I was sitting there with a bunch of veterans in a group and we're talking, I'm angry, motherfucker. I'm angry. And then you're like, what? Well, I don't know. I'm just angry.
yeah,
And you find out that anger is the symptom. Anger's the headache because you got high blood pressure. That
right,
that's the it's the symptom of something else. And the way a therapist had put it was hurt and fear.
mhm,
And when you put those together, that's what leads to that anger. That was your response to things. It was a lot easier to respond to it in an angry way. It was a lot easier to be angry. It was a great cocoon. I mean, it made for a great cocoon. And then you have to find out the why, and that's where the work really begins.
yep,
And for me, it was my wife that put me on to hey, your brain changed, man. Here, look, it shows these scans, and you might want to look into this. And I'm like, brain scans, because at first I was like, nah, I don't need that.
right,
Who wants that stigma? I'm not crazy. And then next thing I had a position of trust, the job that I got back when I got back home. And so I was like, and then, you know, she showed me those things, and I was like, well, maybe I could. And man, that started a journey of pain. So when did that pain that you had that was causing all that anger, when did it get too much to where you said, I have to change this?
yeah,
And where did you go from there?
yeah. So we had a dog at the time, and our bedroom, we moved into a new house after I got back. Our bedroom had brand new carpets, white carpets, and there was a bathroom coming right off the bedroom, and the bathroom had tile floor, right? And the flooring actually matters to the story, so that's why I'm
Mm-hmm.
describing it. But
No, it's fine.
so white carpets in the bedroom and tile floor in the bathroom, and the dog is walking into the bedroom, and so she's walking along, and um, she starts to get sick. She starts to throw up, like dogs, like they you could tell they're about to throw up, and she stops just short of the bathroom, and she throws up right on the white carpet. And
Oh,
at that point, I lost it on this dog. I went off. I was like, and I'm yelling. I'm like, just another foot over, you'd be in the bathroom, and it would be so much easier to clean. Now I gotta get a steam cleaner. The rug's probably ruined, and I'm yelling and I'm screaming. And I'm like, at some point, I was like, it's a dog. She doesn't understand what I'm saying. She doesn't understand the logic of locate, like, shot
yeah.
placement on your puke. Like, she doesn't understand that kind of thing, you know? And so I I was like, "What the hell is wrong with me? I'm yelling at a dog who doesn't understand me, who's sick, and this isn't." She understands that I'm mad, but, like, this isn't making anything better. She's obviously not feeling well, so why don't I be a little more compassionate and try to help her a little bit? And, like,
Mm-hmm.
who cares? It's just a carpet. Like, it's not the end of the world. Even if I have to replace a whole damn thing, it's not the end of the world. And I sat there and I was like, this person is a nightmare. And I started thinking back, and I was like, you know, I'm acting this way with my dog, but how am I acting with my wife and my kid, my coworkers, and my the other people that I interact with? How am I acting with all those people?
Hmm.
And I was like, this is not okay. I can't keep doing this. I have to make a change. I Something has to give here. Um, and that was later in the evening. It was, getting closer to bedtime at that point, and I was like, tomorrow morning I'm gonna pick up the phone. I'm gonna call somebody and get some help. And to be honest, that was one of the scariest phone calls I ever made because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know. Like I called, made an appointment. People were super nice, by the way. I called the vet center, which for the folks who don't know, they're kind of affiliated with the VA. I don't know exactly how, but
That was the first stop. Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of first stop when you're on
Hmm.
this tour, if you will.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I called them, super nice, super friendly, helpful, got me scheduled for a time. And again, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know if I was going to be walking in and they'd lead me into a padded room with a straitjacket and all this kind of stuff, or if it was just going to be, me talking to somebody. And not to say that me talking to somebody was any less scary than a padded room, but it was like a venture into the unknown. I had no idea what to expect. And
Right.
turns out I got there. I got to the appointment, probably palm sweaty. I probably was all nervous and everything. And it turns out the guy uh, that I was assigned to, I guess, the counselor that I was talking to, he was also a vet. He
Hmm.
served. He also served overseas, and um, so he got it. He understood what I was going through. He had
Right.
been there. He'd experienced very similar things. And not to say that a counselor or therapist needs to be a combat vet to be effective, but it was like I walked in and it was like from the get go, it was like just two vets talking, and it made me a whole lot more comfortable with the conversation because I was talking to another vet and we were just sharing experiences. We could have been sitting at at a bar at the VFW or something and just having a conversation. It
Yeah.
could have been very similar to that. There's no booze involved, obviously, but it was just a conversation. And I was like,
The
okay, I
the
think I can
fear
do
the fear of saying something that like a civilian would take in all kinds of funky ways gone when
it.
you're talking to that brother. So I mean it is something to be said when there is somebody who does understand it, but it's definitely not the be all end all. So
Right.
you went and you got this therapy. You went and did the work, and I'm sure it was a bumpy road with your family, with everybody dealing with grief, because you all were dealing with grief
That's
and
right.
everything that goes with that. Um, how, where are you now? What is Scott DeLuzio's life now?
Yeah. So uh, went through that therapy, stopped after a while, and I was like, I think I'm good. I think we're good to go. And then a couple years later, I started realizing that anger was creeping back in, and I was like, okay, maybe I didn't quite figure this all out. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to get back into this therapy thing and figure this out. And I've been in ever since. And I'm like looking at it kind of as one of those things that like I said earlier, it's not like you just take a magic pill and it's all of a sudden fixed. Your mental health is kind of more of a journey, and it's going to require some work, and especially when you're dealing with complex issues. You're dealing with grief. You're dealing with PTSD from combat. You're dealing with a whole host of other things. And it's not like you can just go in and be like, okay, let's just wave this magic wand and you're all good to go. So I still go to therapy. I think I mentioned that earlier. People
Hmm.
do that, and it, it's helpful to just have somebody who, third party type person who can just you can open up to. You're safe to talk to these people. I've, some of the things that that I talked about earlier, some of the things that I was like, man, someone is going to think I'm crazy for saying this stuff, but for saying that I want to go kill a village of people. Um, and they're like, yeah, no, we get it. Like, I'm like, well, you get it? Like,
Mhm.
there's other people out there who have had similar thoughts. There's other
You've heard it.
people like me.
Yeah. No, and that's what I love about therapy is I could say the things that I will never say to, because there's some things that people, they can never hear it from your mouth because it will change them forever.
Yeah.
They just, there's some people, and I don't blame them. Some of the things that we say are raw, and I had to kind of understand that it's not typical. Some of the things that we have to say, so
And
it could change somebody. So I get that.
yeah. And just to kind of take that, like what you were just saying there, and kind of give an example, if anyone out there is listening doesn't quite get what you're saying here. Um, a lot of times a civilian will ask a veteran or a police officer or something, you ever killed anybody, right? And I think to myself, and I this is the answer I always give is like, well, why does that matter to you? Like, why do you want to know? And the answer that I give, I say, look, I can answer it one of two ways. I can tell you that yes, I have killed somebody, and you're gonna maybe look at me a little bit differently. You're gonna look at me as like, oh man, this guy is capable of killing somebody.
Hmm.
And that could be scary to some people to know that there's somebody else who's in the same room who is capable of killing somebody, right? Or you're gonna look at me another way and you're gonna say, oh, if I say no, I've never killed anyone. You're like, "Oh, did you really deploy? Did you really serve? Did you really, go to combat? Like, come on." Like,
Yeah, you're not a real
but
deal. You're
so
kind of,
so I say, no matter how I answer this question, it's kinda like this black box, because I don't answer. I don't tell people yes or no, either way. It's just this black box of unknown, um, and, uh, I say, one of those things are gonna come out, in either way, it's gonna change your opinion of me, and I don't see the benefit. I don't see that there's any value to answering that question, you know?
I definitely respect that. That I can understand that. It is sometimes it's kind of like you're not trying to brag about it, bro.
No.
It's not something that you're proud of. When it, for me, along with the therapy, it was faith that got me through.
Yeah,
It was my faith in Jesus Christ that changed me. Now everybody gets there every way, whatever way they want to. I don't blame you. I tried every other way, and it led to self destruction. For me, it was Jesus. So when I tell my story, I that part is part of it, but it's only in that I I don't have to I don't have to hold on to the guilt myself about what I've done.
yeah,
God forgave me. And even though, I still linger with it because I'm human, it's not a natural human condition to hurt somebody like that. So that for me, it was God. For me, it was his grace that got me there. But every vet gets there a different thing. But I definitely, what I didn't want to do ever, and this applies more to the youngsters that ask something like that. Oh, did you, you know, I never want to seem like I'm bragging about that because it's not something that is to brag about.
right.
And then the other thing is I'm no hero. I'm no hero. The heroes were left. Your brother, that was a hero. That they were left there, and so, man, it's been one heck of a journey. It really has, especially the part about getting back and trying to get to some semblance of whatever normal is. And I know we're not supposed to use the word normal, but whatever normal is, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
And you've been through that journey. So tell me, how can people, because obviously this is the good part. How can people get a hold of you? How can people see your stuff? Tell me more about what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, You mentioned my book earlier. It's Surviving Sun. It's out on Amazon in all the formats that you could possibly want. Hardcover, paperback, Kindle, the ebook or audiobook. I did the audiobook myself. Read the whole book, which was super frustrating, but it came out. I think it came out good in the end. So if you oh, you got it up on the screen. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you check it out. Or one thing that surprised me when I first came out with the book is people were asking for signed copies of the book, and I was like, who wants my signature on a book, right? I just blew my mind that someone would want that. So the website you just pulled up is survivingsunbook.com, and people can get a signed copy if they want from there as well. Either way, Amazon's usually quicker than I can get it to you. But if you want it signed, you can always go to survivingsunbook.com. In the podcast, Drive On Podcast, you can go to driveonpodcast.com or anywhere that you listen to podcasts, wherever you listen to this, YouTube and all that stuff too. We have all the stuff there. So, and on all the socials, it's Drive On Podcast as well. So yeah, we got the 400th episode will be coming out on the 4th of July this year, and looking forward to that because I was like, this is a pretty big milestone. I thought I when I first started, I didn't know how many episodes I'd do. I probably figured a dozen, maybe 2 dozen episodes or so, and now closing in on 400, and I'm like, man, that is crazy. So pretty excited about that.
I'm super proud of you as a brother that you're doing this and that you've gotten to 400, and then you're telling these stories, but you're not just telling those stories. You're covering the around the stuff. Like for instance, you had Triage Cancer, which I hope to have on. And they're working with PACT Act vets, and I lost a brother in arms, Army dog last year at 45 to some aggressive colon cancer that they tied to the burn pits.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. This dude was an amazing person. You look at an amazing person like that and you wonder how you make it and not him, you know? And so he was in Afghanistan too. He was I don't exactly remember what that unit was, but he was a good man, Chris Carnegie, and he passed on to some aggressive cancer. So you have these stories, you have these backstories that go along with helping us in our journeys, and I thought that was pretty cool that you put that on there.
Yeah, so we try to have a mix of talking to other veterans, sharing their stories and what they've gone through, because a lot of times it helps folks who are sitting there. That a lot of times we isolate, you get away from other people, but it helps to know that there is someone else out there who might have gone through the same thing as you, and not only did they go through it, but they figured it out. Like you said, you had religion to help you. Maybe that can help somebody else, right? Somebody else might have found some other thing that helped them, some alternative therapies or something that helped them. And so
horses, whatever.
Yeah. And the way I see it is, I don't care what that thing is, what your cure is for whatever it is you're going through. I don't care what it is. Just find it. And there's so many things out there. So we talk to those people who have figured things out, or maybe they're still in that process, but they share their journey and talk about it, right? But we also talk to providers of services, like you're talking, like different cancer programs, or mental health treatment programs, or gosh, you name it. We cover so many different topics, and the whole goal is to make sure that people can find the resources that they need and hear about what those resources are, because you can go to a website, some nonprofit's website, and you can read that they're the best at this and that and the other thing, and of course they can say that on their website, right? But let's hear from the people who actually are part of it, or maybe went through their programs, and let's hear from those people. And once when we start hearing those stories, then we can kind of make a judgment like, yeah, maybe this might work for me. This might be the type of environment that provides the healing that I need. And so that's what I try to do on the show is provide this as best I can to the folks who are out there who are struggling. A lot of times, the, the people who are struggling themselves aren't the ones who are listening to the show, getting the information, but it's a loved one, a spouse
Mm.
or a parent or a sibling or somebody who just cares about this person, sees that they're struggling. They're like, how do we figure this out? I don't know where to go. And they find the show, they hear the stories, and they're like, hey, let's drop plant that little seed in their brain and be like, hey, go check this place out, and maybe this will help. And that's really the goal for me, is to get the people, stop that 22 a day, bring that down to nothing,
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's what I'm trying to tell these stories, man, because there is a vet out there who doesn't feel hope, doesn't feel like there's any end to this, that are in that tunnel, that ugly tunnel that you get in. Man, if something that God has led me to, that I've done in this podcast, has stopped one vet from blowing their brains out, brother, I have succeeded in life, bro.
Yeah.
If God takes me tomorrow, I'm good. If I saved one, and that's how I look at it. But man, thank you so much for coming on, brother. And I got so much out of this. Can you stick around real quick after the show?
I could. Yeah,
Thanks,
absolutely.
man.